You have had the experience. A decision that seemed perfectly logical on paper somehow felt wrong. A person you just met made the hair on your arm stand up for reasons you could not explain. A path you chose without quite knowing why turned out to be exactly right. You called it instinct. You called it a hunch. You called it gut feeling. And then, later, you wondered whether you had simply gotten lucky, or whether something real had guided you. The answer is something real. And the story of what that something is goes deeper into human biology, neuroscience, and evolutionary history than most people realize. Start with the gut itself. Your digestive system contains approximately 100 million neurons. That is more neurons than are in your spinal cord. More neurons than in the entire peripheral nervous system of most animals. This network of nerve cells lining the walls of your gastrointestinal tract is so sophisticated and so independent that neuroscientists have given it a formal name, the enteric nervous system. They also call it the second brain. And unlike almost every other system in your body, it can operate completely independently of your actual brain. If you severed the vagus nerve connecting your gut to your gut would keep working. It would keep coordinating digestion, responding to stimuli, processing information, and sending signals. Your brain would be cut off from the conversation, but the conversation would continue. That conversation, when it is intact, is constant and bidirectional. Your gut sends signals to your brain continuously, carrying information about the state of your body, the environment inside your digestive system, and something considerably more subtle and important. Because your gut does not just process food. It processes experience. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California has spent decades studying what he calls somatic markers, the physical sensations that your body produces in response to situations, and the role those sensations play in decision-making. His research, conducted partly through studying patients with damage to specific regions of the brain, produced a finding that fundamentally changed how scientists understand rational thought. People who lose the ability to feel emotion, due to damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, do not become more rational. They become paralyzed. Without the emotional and physical signals their bodies had been generating, they could not make even simple decisions. They could analyze options indefinitely but could not choose between them. The feeling was not getting in the way of good thinking. The feeling was the thinking. Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis proposes that when you face a decision, your body generates physical sensations based on its previous experience with similar situations. Nausea. A tightening in the chest. A warmth spreading through the stomach. These sensations are not random noise. They are your body's compressed summary of everything relevant it has learned. They are data. Ancient, fast, and often more accurate than the slow deliberate reasoning your conscious mind performs, precisely because they carry information your conscious mind cannot fully access or articulate. This is where the gut feeling connects to something even more fundamental. Your brain is not a rational computer that occasionally gets contaminated by emotion. It is a prediction machine, and it runs two very different kinds of prediction processes simultaneously. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman at Princeton University described these two systems in his landmark work as System 1 and System 2. System 2 is the slow, deliberate, effortful reasoning you are aware of. The kind of thinking that solves algebra problems and builds arguments. System 1 is fast, automatic, and largely unconscious. It is the system that recognizes faces, reads emotional tone, detects patterns, and produces intuitive responses faster than your conscious mind can keep up with. Your gut feeling is largely the output of System 1, and the key thing to understand about System 1 is that it is not guessing. It is pattern matching at extraordinary speed against a lifetime of accumulated experience. Every situation you have ever encountered, every social interaction you have navigated, every outcome you have witnessed, every time you felt fear and it turned out to be warranted, every time you felt trust and it was repaid, all of this gets encoded. Not as explicit memories you can access and describe, but as learned patterns that shape the probability distributions your brain uses to generate predictions. When your gut says something is wrong, it is not speaking from nowhere. It is speaking from a deep archive of everything you have ever experienced that matches the current pattern. This is why gut feelings tend to be more reliable in domains where you have substantial experience, and less reliable in domains where you do not. Research by psychologist Gary Klein, who spent decades studying how experts make decisions under pressure, found that experienced firefighters, emergency room physicians, chess grandmasters, and military commanders rarely worked through options analytically in real time. They recognized situations. A pattern matched, a course of action presented itself, and they evaluated it rapidly. Their gut feeling was not feeling at all in the colloquial sense. It was compressed expertise, years of pattern recognition condensed into an instantaneous signal. The firefighter who suddenly knows a building is about to collapse, without being able to immediately explain why, is processing dozens of subtle cues simultaneously: the heat distribution, the behavior of the smoke, the sound of the structure under stress, the absence of a sound that should be there. None of these cues rise separately to conscious awareness. But the experienced brain integrates them instantly and produces a result: get out now. The feeling arrives before the reasoning. The reasoning comes later, if it comes at all. But gut feelings can also be wrong, and understanding when they are wrong is as important as understanding when they are right. They tend to fail in situations of genuine novelty, where your pattern library has no relevant entries. They tend to fail when they are contaminated by recent emotional state, when fear from an unrelated experience bleeds into an unrelated decision. They tend to fail when you are using them in domains where your experience base is thin or systematically biased. And they tend to fail when what feels like intuition is actually familiarity, the comfortable feeling that arises around things you are used to, regardless of whether those things are good for you. Psychologist Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia has studied the gap between what people think they know about their own mental processes and what is actually driving their behavior. His research suggests that the reasons people give for their decisions are often post hoc rationalizations, stories constructed after the fact to explain choices that were actually driven by processes they have no conscious access to. This cuts both ways. Sometimes the conscious rationalization is improving on a flawed gut signal. Sometimes it is overriding a correct one with motivated reasoning. The art of using gut feelings well is not blind trust, and it is not dismissal. It is calibration. It is asking the question: in this domain, with this level of experience, in this emotional state, how reliable is this signal likely to be? A doctor with 30 years of clinical experience who gets a bad feeling about a patient's presentation is carrying something real in that sensation. A first-year investor who gets a good feeling about a stock because the company makes a product they enjoy is not. There is a final layer to this story that changes everything about how you think about your gut. Your gut does not just receive and process experience. It generates experience. The enteric nervous system produces 90 to 95% of the body's serotonin. The chemical most associated with mood, well-being, and emotional stability is made almost entirely in your digestive tract, not in your brain. The microbiome living in your gut, the trillions of bacteria that digest your food and regulate your immune system, actively communicates with your brain via the vagus nerve, influencing mood, anxiety, and cognitive function in ways that scientists are only beginning to map. What this means is that the feeling in your gut when you make a decision is not a metaphor. It is a physiological event, involving neurotransmitters, neural signals, bacterial communication, and bodily state information, all of it converging on your brain as input for whatever you are about to decide. The gut feeling is real. It is biological. And it is carrying information that your conscious analytical mind simply does not have access to. You have had the experience. A decision that seemed perfectly logical on paper somehow felt wrong. And now you know that the feeling was not noise, not irrationality, not weakness. It was data. Compressed, ancient, fast, and drawing on everything you have ever lived through. The gut was not guessing. It was remembering.